The bullet screamed overhead as Staff Sergeant Mike Rodriguez pressed his back against the crumbling concrete wall. 3 of his SEAL teammates crouched beside him, their breathing heavy and controlled despite the chaos erupting around their position. The enemy fire had been relentless for the past hour, pinning Alpha Team behind what remained of an abandoned building in the heart of hostile territory. Rodriguez keyed his radio with trembling fingers. "Command, this is Alpha Team. We are taking heavy fire and need immediate extraction. Repeat, we need backup now." The response crackled back through static filled with the distant sound of more gunfire. "Alpha Team, no assets available for immediate support. Hold your position. Before we continue with this desperate situation, drop a comment and let us know what state you're watching from. Maybe you have military families in your area who understand the weight of moments like this." The team leader looked at his men, seeing the same grim realization in their eyes. They were on their own, surrounded by an enemy that seemed to grow stronger by the minute. In the distance, the sound of approaching vehicles meant their situation was about to get much worse. What none of them knew was that high above on a distant ridge, someone was watching through a scope, calculating distances that would seem impossible to most. The gunfire intensified as Rodriguez counted his remaining ammunition. 12 rounds left in his current magazine, maybe 40 more distributed among his team. Petty Officer Jackson clutched his wounded shoulder, blood seeping through his tactical vest despite the field dressing they had hastily applied. "We cannot hold this position much longer," Rodriguez muttered to his communications specialist, Corpsman Williams. The enemy had systematically cut off every escape route, moving with precision that suggested professional military training rather than local militia. 2 miles away on an overlooking ridge, a figure adjusted the focus on a high-powered scope. The weathered hands moved with practiced efficiency, calculating wind speed, humidity, and the impossibly long distance to the battlefield below. Most snipers considered anything beyond 1,500 meters an extreme shot. This distance was nearly triple that. The observer had been living quietly in the nearby village for 3 years, helping with medical needs and keeping a low profile. Local residents knew him simply as the American doctor who asked few questions and never spoke about his past. They had no idea that before his self-imposed exile, he had held records that other military snipers could only dream of achieving. Through the scope, he watched the SEAL team growing more desperate by the minute. The enemy forces were positioning for a final assault, moving heavy weapons into place. In less than 10 minutes, those brave men would be overwhelmed. The observer sighed deeply, knowing his peaceful anonymity was about to end. Rodriguez felt sweat dripping into his eyes as another burst of automatic fire chipped concrete fragments from their crumbling shelter. Jackson had gone pale, his injured shoulder making it nearly impossible for him to return effective fire. Williams checked his medical supplies and shook his head grimly. They were down to basic bandages and 1 morphine injector. The enemy voices grew closer, shouting coordinates and tactical commands in a foreign language that Rodriguez recognized but wished he did not. These are not amateur fighters. They moved with the discipline of special forces, using suppressive fire patterns and flanking maneuvers that spoke of extensive training. On the distant ridge, the observer made his decision. He reached beneath a loose floorboard in the abandoned watchtower where he had been conducting his surveillance, retrieving a custom rifle case that had not been opened in 3 years. The weapon inside was a masterpiece of precision engineering, chambered for the specialized long-range ammunition he had been saving for a situation he hoped would never come. His fingers traced the familiar contours of the rifle stock, muscle memory returning instantly despite the years of forced retirement. In his previous life, he had been known by a call sign that struck fear into enemy forces across multiple theaters of operation. Ghost, the sniper who could kill from distances that defied belief, who appeared and vanished like morning mist. Below, the SEAL team prepared for what looked like their final stand. Ghost assembled his rifle with movements that spoke of thousands of hours of practice. Each component clicked into place with mechanical precision as he transformed from quiet village Dr. back into the weapon he had once been. The bipod legs extended with barely a whisper, the scope mounted with perfect alignment that he could achieve even in complete darkness. Through his earpiece, he monitored the enemy radio chatter he had been tracking for weeks. Their leader was coordinating the final assault, positioning rocket-propelled grenades to eliminate the American position in one devastating barrage. The attack would begin in exactly 4 minutes. Rodriguez tried his radio one more time, desperation creeping into his voice despite his training. Any station, this is Alpha Team requesting immediate air support or extraction. We have wounded and are about to be overrun. The static that answered him carried only the distant sound of his own doom approaching. Ghost calculated the atmospheric conditions with the instinct of someone who had made impossible shots his life's work. Wind speed 2.3 meters per second from the northeast. Temperature dropping as evening approached. Humidity at 68%. The distance to the primary target was 4,200 meters. An impossible shot by conventional standards. He chambered a single round and adjusted his breathing to the rhythm he had learned decades ago. The crosshairs found their first target through the gathering dusk. The enemy commander raised his hand, preparing to signal the final assault. Ghost could see him clearly through his scope despite the impossible distance, a testament to the precision optics he had maintained with obsessive care. The man wore the insignia of a colonel, his tactical vest loaded with enough firepower to finish the trapped Americans in seconds. Rodriguez heard the enemy engines growing closer and made peace with what was coming. He looked at his wounded teammates and spoke quietly. "It has been an honor serving with you." Williams nodded grimly, checking his sidearm one final time. Jackson managed a weak smile despite his blood loss, gripping his rifle with his good arm. Ghost controlled his breathing, slowing his heart rate through techniques that had made him legendary among special operations communities worldwide. The first shot would reveal his position, but it would also announce to every enemy fighter that death could reach them from any distance. His finger found the trigger with the familiarity of an old friend. The crosshairs settled on the enemy commander's center mass. Ghost calculated the bullet's trajectory through his mind with mathematical precision, accounting for the Earth's rotation over the 4-second flight time. The round would drop nearly 30 feet during its journey, requiring compensation that few snipers would even attempt. He exhaled slowly and squeezed the trigger with perfect control. The rifle recoiled against his shoulder as the shot that would change everything began its long journey through the gathering darkness. 4 seconds later, the enemy commander's chest exploded in a spray of red mist. He dropped instantly, his raised hand still frozen in the signal position as his body crumpled to the ground. The surrounding fighters stared in shock, unable to comprehend what had just happened. No gunshot had been audible from such an impossible distance. Rodriguez felt the change in enemy fire patterns immediately. The coordinated assault had dissolved into confusion as fighters scrambled to understand where the shot had originated. "What the hell was that?" Williams whispered, peering through a crack in their concrete shelter. Ghost was already cycling his bolt, chambering a second round as he tracked the enemy lieutenant attempting to take command. The man was shouting orders while pointing toward various hills, completely unaware that death was watching him through precision optics from a distance that defied military doctrine. The second shot took 3.8 seconds to reach its target. The lieutenant spun and fell, his tactical radio still crackling with confused voices asking for orders that would never come. Panic began spreading through the enemy ranks as they realized they were being eliminated by an invisible force. Rodriguez keyed his radio in amazement. "Command, enemy forces are taking fire from an unknown friendly. Repeat, we have Guardian Angel support from an unidentified sniper." The enemy was falling back toward their vehicles, their organized assault completely shattered by shots that seemed to come from nowhere. Ghost tracked the heavy weapons specialist carrying the rocket-propelled grenade launcher that would have ended the SEAL team's resistance. The man was running toward a covered position, desperate to escape the invisible death that had claimed his commanders. The third shot traveled through the evening air with mathematical precision, striking the target's center mass and eliminating the greatest remaining threat. Rodriguez watched in awe as enemy fighters abandoned their positions and sprinted toward their extraction vehicles. The disciplined assault force that had pinned them down for hours was disintegrating into a panicked retreat. Whoever their guardian angel was, they possessed skills that bordered on supernatural. Williams grabbed his binoculars and scanned the distant ridgelines, searching for muzzle flashes or any sign of their mysterious savior. "I do not see anything out there, Sarge. Whoever this is, they are shooting from beyond visual range." Jackson managed to sit up straighter, his color returning slightly as the immediate threat evaporated around them. Ghost methodically eliminated 3 more targets, each shot precisely calculated for maximum psychological impact on the remaining fighters. He chose targets who were attempting to rally their comrades or coordinate a fighting withdrawal. The message was clear. No one was safe, no matter how they tried to hide or escape. The surviving enemy forces reached their vehicles and fled into the darkness, their engines screaming as they raced to escape the killing ground that their sure victory had become. The battlefield fell silent except for the distant sound of retreating vehicles fading into the night. Rodriguez slowly raised his head above their concrete barrier, scanning the area where dozens of enemy fighters had been positioned just minutes before. Bodies lay scattered across the compound, each one eliminated by shots that had come from an impossible distance. Williams helped Jackson to his feet, the wounded SEAL leaning heavily against his teammate as they surveyed the carnage around them. 6 confirmed kills from a sniper we never even saw, Williams said in disbelief. The precision was beyond anything I have witnessed in 15 years of operations. Rodriguez keyed his radio with trembling hands. "Command, this is Alpha Team. Enemy forces have withdrawn. Repeat, hostile contact has ceased. We are securing the area for extraction." The voice that responded carried obvious relief and confusion. "Alpha Team, confirm your status. Did you say the enemy withdrew?" Ghost watched through his scope as the SEAL team began moving cautiously through the compound, checking each fallen enemy and securing the area with professional efficiency. He felt the familiar weight of what he had just done settling on his shoulders. 6 lives taken to save 4. The mathematics of warfare that he had hoped to leave behind forever. He began disassembling his rifle with the same methodical precision he had used to assemble it, each component carefully cleaned and stored. The Ghost had returned from retirement for one night, but morning would find only the quiet village doctor once again. Rodriguez led his team across the compound, their movements cautious but filled with growing amazement at what they discovered. Each enemy fighter had been eliminated with a single shot to center mass, the precision so exact it looked like the work of a machine rather than a human marksman. Williams knelt beside one of the bodies and examined the wound channel with professional interest. "This is a .50 caliber round," he announced, his voice filled with awe. "But look at the angle of entry. This shot came from an extreme elevation and distance." Jackson pointed toward the northern ridgeline with his good arm. "Has to be somewhere up there, but that has got to be over 2 miles away." The team began a systematic search for their mysterious guardian angel, following the reverse trajectory of the shots they could analyze. Rodriguez used his rangefinder to calculate distances to various peaks and ridgelines, each measurement adding to their growing disbelief. The closest possible firing position was 3,800 meters away. Williams discovered spent brass casings near the compound perimeter, but these belonged to enemy weapons. Their savior had been so far away that not even the ejected shell casings from his rifle had reached the battlefield. "Alpha Team, this is Command. Extraction helicopter is inbound. Estimated arrival 20 minutes. Rodriguez acknowledged the transmission while continuing to scan the distant hills through his rifle scope. Somewhere out, there was a sniper whose skills defied everything he thought he knew about the limits of marksmanship. Rodriguez made a decision that went against standard operating procedure. He keyed his radio to an open frequency that he hoped their guardian angel might be monitoring. Unknown sniper. This is Staff Sergeant Rodriguez, Alpha Team Leader. If you can hear this transmission, we owe you our lives. I would like to meet the person who just performed the impossible. The response came through crystal clear on a frequency that only special operations units typically used. Sergeant Rodriguez, this is an old friend. Meet me at the stone bridge in the village below. Come alone and unarmed. Your men need medical attention that I can provide. Williams looked at his team leader with concern. Sarge, this could be a trap. We do not know who this person really is. Rodriguez shook his head, his instincts telling him that anyone with the skills they had just witnessed could have eliminated them easily if that had been the intention. 20 minutes later, Rodriguez walked across the ancient stone bridge that connected the village to the mountain road. A figure emerged from the shadows, moving with the quiet confidence of someone accustomed to dangerous situations. The man appeared to be in his 50s, wearing simple civilian clothes that could not disguise the military bearing underneath. I am Dr. Michael Harrison, the man said, extending his hand, but you might know me by a different name. Years ago, when I wore the uniform, they called me Ghost. Rodriguez felt his breath catch in his throat as he recognized the legend standing before him. Rodriguez stared at the man before him, struggling to reconcile the quiet village doctor with the legendary figure who had been presumed dead for 3 years. Ghost, he whispered. Every sniper in the military knows your record. The longest confirmed kill in history. 14 confirmed eliminations in a single mission. You're supposed to be dead. Harrison smiled sadly as he led Rodriguez toward his clinic. I needed to be dead to the military world. Too many missions, too many lives taken in the name of duty. I came here to find peace, to use my medical training to save lives instead of taking them. The irony was not lost on him that his first night of violence in 3 years had been to preserve life. Your teammate needs surgery on that shoulder wound, Harrison continued as they walked. I can handle it here, but he will need evacuation to a proper military hospital within 12 hours. Rodriguez nodded, still processing the magnitude of what had happened. Why did you help us? You could have stayed hidden. Harrison paused at the clinic door, his eyes distant with memories. Because 20 years ago, a SEAL team saved my life when I was pinned down behind enemy lines. They risked everything for one Army sniper they had never met. Tonight, I returned that favor to the Brotherhood. Rodriguez felt the weight of military tradition and honor in those words. The two warriors stood in comfortable silence, understanding passing between them that transcended rank and service branch. Harrison worked with practiced efficiency, cleaning and suturing Jackson's shoulder wound while the extraction helicopter approached in the distance. The young SEAL would recover fully with proper treatment, the bullet having missed all major arteries and nerves. Williams assisted with the medical procedures, impressed by the doctor's surgical skills that matched his legendary marksmanship. As the helicopter touched down in the village square, Rodriguez shook Harrison's hand one final time. Your secret is safe with us. Document. The official report will mention an unknown friendly who provided sniper support from long range. Nothing more. Harrison nodded his appreciation, understanding the code that bound warriors together across all conflicts. The SEAL team loaded into the helicopter, Jackson stable and alert despite his wound. As they lifted off into the night sky, Rodriguez looked down at the quiet village where one of military history's greatest legends had chosen to disappear into a life of healing rather than killing. Harrison watched the aircraft fade into darkness before returning to his clinic. Tomorrow he would resume his quiet existence as the village doctor, treating minor injuries and helping deliver babies. But tonight had reminded him that some skills never fade, and some duties transcend retirement. If this story moved you, share your thoughts about your favorite moment or character, or tell us about someone you know who showed hidden strength when it mattered most. Sometimes the greatest heroes are those who choose to serve in silence, protecting others from the shadows without seeking recognition or glory.